Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are talking about how a reliable leaker has teased an epic release from Nintendo in this year of 2026, it seems. We're not entirely sure what exactly is going on, but what we do understand is that it seems to have something to do with Xenoblade. But there are quite a few possibilities here. Could this be a new Switch 2 edition, a definitive edition, Xenoblade Chronicles 4? Could this finally be Project Legacy? We're not sure, but it seems to be something from Monolith Soft. But there's another implication here, that if we are to be getting this announcement soon, that it might be happening in, yes, possibly a Nintendo Direct. Now, not necessarily a Nintendo Direct. Nintendo can make this announcement through Twitter or Nintendo Today, but you gotta think, if Nintendo is making a pretty big announcement from one of their main developers, that it might be in a big Direct, finally. So we actually have quite a few angles to dissect here regarding this subject today. Do you find yourself unable to take a good nap during the day from wherever you may be? Then perhaps you are in need of a soft, comfortable sleep mask that blocks out all light. Fortunately, Mad to Sleep, the sponsor for today's video, has just that, a quality sleep mask. This sleep mask has super soft, comfy cushions that cover your eyes and block out all light. It's easy to adjust to different sizes, and it feels great to wear. And it's helped me personally fit in just a bit more rest during my days. So if you're looking to improve your sleep and energy, check out the Mad to Sleep mask using the link in the description below with my code SLEEPRESTART. So what happened yesterday that has led to this discussion today is Nintendo, the reliable leaker, teasing something Xenoblade by reposting his cryptic, vague Xenoblade tweet from January 6th. So, for those that don't know, Nintendo has a pretty significant history of teasing different Nintendo announcements ahead of time in a vague way. Here's an example. We go back to last year on January 9th, Nintendo said this on Twitter. Will you be picking up Donkey Kong Country Returns with a big S HD next week? And then in the image, you see that the S is edited to be significantly larger than all the other text. For those that don't know, BEE is the product code for the Switch 2 cartridge. So this was Nintendo teasing the Switch 2 first look trailer that happened on the same day as the release day for Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. So this is just one of many different teases Nintendo has done in the past. So we take a look here. When he's reposting something about Xenoblade, I think there's absolutely purpose here. But you'll notice this is a repost. He actually made this tweet back on January 6th. We've covered this before. But there's a few reasons why this is interesting. One, if he's reposting it now, it's suggesting that something is going to happen relatively soon, perhaps. And so he's reminding us of this cryptic tweet from January 6th for a reason. Perhaps something is about to happen, maybe, just maybe, a Nintendo Direct. And what would be kind of crazy about this is that if he is teasing this now for maybe a Nintendo Direct next week, reminder, he teased us about the Switch 2 first look a week in advance, then there would be a Nintendo Direct, assuming it happens next week, in March, which, by the way, was rumored by Nash Weedle, which a lot of people are highly skeptical of right now because he put out this big rumor that we'd be getting a 3D Mario reveal and the next project from Monolith Soft in a general direct, if not in February, by the end of March. Most people, it seems, have given up on this possibility, but there is still 1 week left of March, so we do get a Nintendo Direct next week with the next project from Monolith Soft perhaps having something to do with Xenoblade, and then also 3D Mario. Well, then the rumor would, in the very last minute, have proven to be true. We shall see. I would love for that to happen, but obviously it's a rumor. We do not know. Many people are skeptical, so let's just keep that in mind. And also, let me clarify here, just because he's reposting this does not mean he's saying that the announcement is happening next week. That is speculation, but the very fact that he would be reposting it does have me believe that he's reminding us for some reason now, because perhaps something is about to happen relatively soon. What is relatively soon? There's obviously a lot of debate to be had there. But this is extra interesting because he actually had reposted this tweet back in February as well, when Nintendo announced Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition. So many thought that this was what Nintendo was alluding to, because he had reposted the Xenoblade thing with an extra eye emoji. But it seems like, now that he's reposted this, it would be more. And I would say that does make sense because, well, one, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, is kind of a small little upgrade. It's just a $5 upgrade that appears to have been outsourced. It's not even like a major project from Monolith Soft. And we do have other reasons to think that something Monolith Soft, beyond just this Switch 2 Edition, is happening soon. Reminder, we have this potential leak where Caitlin Thorburn, the voice actress for Cosmos in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, actually put out this page on Spotlight with a release date for 2026, suggesting that a Xenoblade Chronicles game where she's voicing Cosmos will be coming out. Now, it's possible that this is in some way fabricated, so do take it with a grain of salt. But this has led many to believe that there is going to be a Xenoblade game coming out this year in 2026 where the character Cosmos will be in and would be voicing this character. Now the thing is, Cosmos is just a minor Blade character in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Is there a new Xenoblade game where she will be taking on more of a role? Or is this more of a hint of a Switch 2 edition or a definitive edition of Xenoblade Chronicles 2? If she's updating her page here, it feels like that would perhaps be implying that there are new lines being added here, which may suggest more story content, which might be suggesting something bigger than just a straight enhancement of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It might mean new content or basically a new game. Those are the possibilities there if this page right here is completely valid. But there's still a few other wrinkles to this conversation, because recently we actually heard from Nate the Hate in regards to 3D Mario that he has nothing he's going to share at present, which implies he has something to share, but he's just not going to share it now, which supports the idea that in his podcast from a couple months ago when he was doing his predictions for 2026, that his predictions might be more than just predictions, because he predicted that 3D Mario would come out this year, and he also predicted Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Definitive Edition, not just a Switch 2 edition, but a Definitive Edition, which if it's anything like the other two Definitive Editions for the Xenoblade series, would have new content, which might explain why Caitlin Thorburn has updated her Spotlight page for her role with Cosmos for a game to come out in 2026. Now, it's still possible that these predictions from Nate were still just predictions, and since that predictions podcast, he's heard some things, and that's why he's alluding to knowing something about 3D Mario. That's a possibility. And again, it's also possible that this page right here for Caitlin Thorburn isn't completely valid. Which brings us back to the Xenoblade thing. What exactly could it be? Well, my first pick would be a definitive edition for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, given the Spotlight page and what we've heard from Nate the Hate. But it's also possible it's a brand new Xenoblade Chronicles game. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 came out in 2022. We're already in 2026. It's been pretty much almost enough time for us to start talking about realistically the next major release from Monolith Soft. But you see, what's interesting about this conversation is that I wouldn't be so quick to predict a Xenoblade Chronicles 4 straight up, for a couple reasons. One, we already understand that after Future Redeemed, the expansion to Xenoblade Chronicles 3, the Klaus trilogy has wrapped up. Xenoblade Chronicles in its current form is not going to continue. Whatever comes next for Xenoblade is going to be a bit of a departure. Now, maybe that's a sequel to Xenoblade Chronicles X, maybe it is still Xenoblade Chronicles 4, but it wouldn't be quite the same as 1 through 3. There's going to be at least a narrative shift here, which does lead me to speculate on a possibility. And I haven't really made this into a proper video yet, so I guess I'm doing it now. What if the next Xenoblade is also Project Legacy? So for those that are unfamiliar with this Project Legacy, it's a code name for something that was leaked by Midori, who's leaked a variety of Nintendo code names, several of which have already been confirmed. And this one is said to be a project in the works by Monolith Soft. And what's interesting about this is that we have seen Monolith Soft recruiting for years throughout the entire Switch era for a new IP that would have a fantasy medieval setting that would have a lot of action elements. We've even seen LinkedIn profile listings from back in 2021 where people were at Monolith were working on an action game. Which, you know, Monolith makes RPGs, maybe it's an action RPG, but that is what we've seen evidence for. Like, it's not a rumor. We know Monolith has been hiring for many years on a project like this. We don't know if it will come out, but we do know they've been hiring for many years for this project. Now, the thing about Project Legacy, it does not fit the typical naming scheme for the Xenoblade Chronicles games. The Xenoblade Chronicles games have to do with little folk, titan folk, small folk, or in the case of Xenoblade Chronicles X, space travel. So something like Legacy doesn't really fit the prior naming schemes for different Xenoblade games. But what is interesting about this is that Project Legacy could be a departure for the series, but still have the Xenoblade name. Because Xenoblade Chronicles X uses a different codename scheme, and while Legacy doesn't match with that one, so it wouldn't suggest a follow-up to Xenoblade Chronicles X per se, it could still be its own thing, and still be Xenoblade. Maybe it's Xenoblade set in a fantasy medieval setting, still has the RPG elements, but also more action elements thrown in as well, and is moving forward with a different type of narrative. But here's the typical reminder. If you find yourself enjoying my videos and you haven't subscribed already, please do. It would make for a huge difference. If I had to rank the likelihood of all the possibilities here, this is what I would say. I think a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Definitive Edition seems the most likely. And I say that knowing we just got the Definitive Edition for Xenoblade Chronicles X, and us not even being 10 years removed from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. That would be next year. But the reason I think it's likely is because of, one, the Spotlight voice actor leak, but also from the prediction by Nate the Hate, which I kind of think might be more than just a prediction, even though I understand it may just be a prediction. That kind of seems like maybe the most likely thing, especially when we also account for what we saw from Monolith last year, where they were recruiting, and they shared some new footage of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 that was definitely different than the initial cutscene in the original release. So that's what I think is the most likely thing that Nintendo may be teasing here. But after that, I then think, maybe this is just a new Monolith title. We're not going to wait that long for the next big new Monolith title. And it actually is Project Legacy, but Project Legacy still carries the Xenoblade name, hence why Nintendo is saying Xenoblade. And then the third possibility is that Project Legacy, whatever that is just not materializing, and they're just making Xenoblade Chronicles 4. I actually would personally prefer it that if this Project Legacy ends up being a true thing, that it is just a new game that's not using the Xenoblade name, because I want to see what Monolith can do by just branching off entirely, and then they come back to Xenoblade afterwards. And maybe that's still a possibility, and that would be announced after a Switch 2 edition or Definitive Edition of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. But that would be the content for this year from Monolith. And maybe, just maybe, finally, it will be announced in a Nintendo Direct soon. And since we're considering all the different possibilities here and how they may or may not relate to Project Legacy, one theory that we've discussed before is that perhaps Project Legacy is not going to be the next title from Monolith that's like Xenoblade. They're still working on Xenoblade, that's going to come out relatively soon. But Project Legacy is a side project that's maybe, and I know this may sound crazy, we've talked about it before though, this would be the team remaking the long theorized and also rumored Ocarina of Time remake. You just consider the name Legacy, that sounds like you're respecting the legacy of something, and the initial bits of art from this project that Monolith has been working on do look very Zelda coded. Like, there appears to be Zelda symbolism. It looks like they're using like a warrior princess version of Zelda. And we did get a recent interview last December, so just a few short months ago, that the Zelda team wants Monolith to take on more of a larger role with Zelda development. Plus also, Zelda series producer Aonuma seems to have been teasing that a big Zelda project is going to be announced relatively soon. Never mind the couple different interviews where Aonuma does seem to have teased Ocarina of Time and his history of teasing future Zelda releases. I ultimately think that this is unlikely. I'm not saying Monolith wouldn't be helping out. They would. They help out with Zelda development. But I ultimately don't think Project Legacy is specifically this, even though I will acknowledge it as a small possibility. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget, you can use my code SLEEPRESTART when checking the link in the description below for the Manta Sleep Mask. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.